This is a continuation of yesterday's video on Quintus's first day at school. Iubet eus celeriter sedere. The teacher, he, iubet, orders. What he orders him to do is, in Latin, always told you by what's called an infinitive. Told you before, the to form of the verb. Okay. To sit, and whom he told is eum. So he's the direct object because it ends in m. He told them to sit, them to sit, not him to sit. Them to sit rapidly, celeriter, swiftly. Diu sedent pueri. Pueri is plural. The singular would be puer. Plural is pueri. Okay? And it's the subject form we call nominative. Okay, make a note of that, please. The verb is sedent, which we had just in the reading before. So you can go back and look at it there. And the adverb going with it is diu, for a long time. Et magistrum audiunt. And subject is still they, because of nt on the end of audiunt. See here? This means it's a plural verb. The previous subject was plural, so we assume it's the same. Whom they audiunt, listen to, is the magistrum. This is the accusative form, the object form of magister. Okay? The plural of magister would be magistri. Okay? Diu clāmat magister. So now we have the subject changed. Magister is the subject. Master. Clāmat, exclaims, is probably a good translation for that. Shouts. Diu we just had, so I won't translate it for you here. Et litteras docet. And something else that he, that is the magister, does is docet, teaches, errās, letters, that is A, B, C, etc. Could mean literature also, but at this point just letters. Pueri is the subject. You can tell by the long I. Sorry. And this is confirmed by the verb here at the end that has a plural ending, scribunt. So the pueri, scribunt, litterās. The boys write letters in tabulis, on their tablets, that is, waxed tablets on which they did their schoolwork. Magister, back to the teacher. Spectat, see how this is singular, going with the singular teacher. The teacher spectats their tabulas. Spectat means like a spectator, looks at, is an onlooker. Spectat means looks at. So he looks at their tabulas. Et, second part of the sentence, still he, corrigit. The past participle of corrigit is correctus. So once you corrigit something, it is correct. So like the letters, once they're corrected, would be correctas. Correctas litterās. So he corrects the litterās. Discit, sort of a difficult verb. It's easily confused with other things, so I've given you this little silly picture of a disco where you learn. Apparently you learn in the disco. Stultus, on the other hand, means adult. Adult. So when something is so stupidly presented, it's called stultifying. It makes you doltish. So here's the sentence, decimus, a change of subject. Decimus. And then the verb, discit, which I told you just before is what you do in the disco, learns. And what he learns is litteras, just what they're learning in school. Litteras. But he learns them aegrē, scarcely. The opposite of aegrē would be facile, easily. So aegrē means scarcely, with difficulty. And then the description of decimus with this noun phrase. Here's a noun, it's a phrase, so we call it a noun phrase. He's a puer, not a man yet, but still a puer, who is magnus and a stultus. Okay, so you should be able to get that from the previous cards. Puer magnus, he's a boy, magnus et stultus. Magister eam iubet tabulam adse fere. So notice at the end here, this ends in re, so that's going to be an infinitive. The magister is subject again. The verb iubet bids, orders, and whom he bids, just like before we had he bids them. Now we have he bids him, a singular person, that is our doltish decimus. He bids him fere. Fere means bring, to carry. Lots of words in English derive from this. For example, anything that ends in fer, like Lucifer, the angelic name of Satan, is a light bringer. His name means light bringer. Just for example, a signifer in the Roman army is the one carrying the standard or the sign. Okay. So the teacher iubets him to fere, bring, and what? Then you have a second object, the tabulas again, the tablets. Adse, to him. Okay. Bring the tablets to him. Tabulam spectat. So this is still he, the teacher, spectat. Remember I told you before, a spectator is an onlooker. So he looks at or on the tabulam. Just one tablet. Benignē, he says. This is the form of masculine nouns that we use when you directly speak to a person. So decimus, comma, asinus s, so you, decimus, s, r, and asinus, a dolt. I like dolt. So it's actually a barnyard animal. That's a quadruped. Quadruped that is not known for its intelligence. Okay, that should be enough information for you. He says, decimus, he says, asinus es, you art, or thou art, a dolt. Litteras non recta scribes. So still you, then the verb scri, and with this ending, s, it means you scribe, that is you write. Litteras, what they've been writing in school so far, A, C, etc. Non recte, Recte is an adverb. If a line is straight, you would call it recta. The linea recta is a straight line. So recte doesn't mean straight or right, but rightly or correctly. So you write letters not correctly. Decimus now makes a cardinal error. Decimus is the subject. He says, O teacher, errās. Errās is related to the word error, as in you are in error. Teacher, you are in error. An important thing not to tell your teachers, especially when they are wrong. Asinus non sum. Sum means I am. I am adult. I am not adult. I am not an unintelligent barnyard quadruped. So by now you have all of three of the singular forms of I am. You have sum, I am, ecce, you are. In an earlier form of English you would have written thou art. And est, he, she, it is. Okay, so make a note of all these things as I write them down. Litteras recte scribo. So subject is still I, Mr. Non-doltish Decimus. Scribo means the same as scribis. Scribis would mean you write. With O on the end, it means I write. I write litteras, which we've had before, recte, correctly, ecce, it's a word we don't have in English. We have a sort of a mild form like this. Look at this. Okay. Litteras iterum scribit. So now the quotes have stopped, and we have just a third-person singular verb. It's just T. We'll go over the verb forms in just a second. He, that is Decimus, Mr. I am not adult. Scribit, writes. That's what the T tells you here. That's the same as our S on the end of writes. Litteras. Again, iterum. Iterum like reiterate. The iter part of reiterate is here, meaning again. Sed, but. Flavius, that is the schoolmaster's name is Flavius. Says, you, S, are impudens, impudent. Decimus, et asinus, and adult. Romans had a concept of pudor, which meant shame. So people who did things that should have cost them shame, but it didn't, were called impudens. Shameless is probably the closest we have. Litteras non recta scribis. So they're just going back and forth. He says you is the supplied subject. Supply it because S means the subject is you. Okay. Scribis, write. Litteras, the fourth time now, non recte, incorrectly. Diu laborant puri. So that's the end of that little episode. Now we have the same sentence structure we had before, where we have the verb, and then we have the verb, and then the subject at the end of the sentence. So for a long time, diu, they work, that is, and then at the end they tell you who the they is. They equal boys. In this case it's kids, really kids, because there's both male and female involved. Tandem, at last. Julia makes a statement to the teacher, addressing him directly. Magister, O teacher, laboramus. The mus in this case means we, and the labor, ra, means work. So we work. Dīligenter. Just translate that diligently. This ending, like the e and recte, is about the equivalent to ly in English, diligently. Litteras bene scribimus, again with this ending mus, we. Scribimus, we write. Litteras, again the letters, those letters. Bene, well. Remember, a benefactor is somebody who does you a good deed, does well, a well-doer, as opposed to a malefactor. The opposite is an evildoer. Thesi sumus. Sumus is the plural of sum, so that's plural. Singular would be sum. So sum, I am. Sumus, we are. We are thesi, tired. Itaque, and so. Dēbēs, you know, because of this ending on the verb here. You ought to, just like the verb abīre, eubeo, this verb takes an infinitive to finish its thought. You ought to dīmittere. You ought to dismiss. Nos means us. It's the plural of me that means me. So singular me, me, plural nos, us. You ought to dismiss us, domum, homeward. Flavius, that is the school teacher, remember the magister, spectat, spectates am here. Notice that it's am, not because Julia's female. If she were male, it would be eum. If you have more than one female, it would be errās. But here it's just Julia. Julia. I.e., by the way, means id est, which means that is. So Flavius looks at her, benignē, kindly is probably a good translation for that. Ita vero. There is no word in Latin for yes. They had a number of phrases that showed the affirmative, and ita vero is one. It means thus truly, that is yes. He says, inquit, dīligenter laboratis puri. So the subject is puri. We've had this before. The subject is at the very end of the sentence. You can tell that it's plural because it ends in I. Laboratis is the plural form when you want to say you in Latin. So you boys, you kids work diligenter. diligently. Okay. Itaque, and so, eubeo, I bid, and now we need a verb that ends in re to go with I bid, and whom he bids is you, plural, which I guess we don't have a good version of this. All y'all is probably, as they say in Texas, I bid you all. To abīre, ab means away, ire means to go. Okay. And where he wants them to go away to is domum, as I said before, homeward. And so I bid you, all y'all, to go away homeward. A little awkward in English, but that's how they said it. Cēterī laeti domum festinat. Cēterī implies that there are two groups. In this case, there's a group that is dismissed for the day, students, and then there's another poor soul, Mr. Dolt Decimus, who has to stay behind. Cēterī laeti, it means happy. The rest, happy. Festinat, hasten. Homeward, domum. Sed, all plot points in Latin start with sed, but Flavius, that is the teacher, eubet, orders, and so we need a verb form that ends in re, and there we have one. He orders them to wait in ludo, in the school, the little red schoolhouse of the Romans. Tu decime, you, so we would translate it now. In earlier modern English, you would have said thou. The singular form of you is thou. Thou, O Decimus, he says, dēbēs, you should, dēbēs, you should, you must, scribere, just like before, we need a verb form that ends in re to complete the sense of dēbēs, very similar to eubed. You ought to scribere, write, so scribere means to write. Litteras iterum, you ought to write the letters. Again, iterum. Sometimes in computer science they talk about iterations of something, which just means repetitions, but they like the word iterations. Itaque, and so, Decimus, sedet, sits, in ludo, in the school, the little red schoolhouse, and how he's feeling is told you by the adjective misère, unhappy, miserable. Dum, while, dum means while. Cēterī, we had before, the rest. Audiunt, play. In via, in the street. See, there's a little play on words between audiunt, they play, and in ludo, where Decimus is, where he does not play. While the rest, audiunt, play, in via, in the street. The end. So that's all for now. I'll wait further instructions.